video and only recording the audio. And you can also do it all like just audio. So
okay.
Yeah,
because when we do Zoom, we'll still have our whole setup going, and then still run the same audio through. So even though it's Zoom, we still get like podcast audio, and then I just record the Zoom, then I can have all the video too.
That
so
makes sense.
that's how we do it, because we've done quite a few remote. Where was the one dude? He was in France.
Yes.
We've done some in France. Yeah, we did some in the UK. Yeah, we interviewed a few chefs that did like super yachts, like chefs on like the big, one was like, oh yeah, I cooked for like, what was it, P. Diddy. She's like, all he wanted was like chicken fried steak. So I didn't get too creative. I was like, oh, well, guy likes what he likes.
That's funny.
All right, so let's just kind of, maybe intro yourself for people listening who might not know the story of Kelsee. And how do you say your last name?
Keitel.
Keitel. Okay.
Okay.
I was like, all right, this can go one or two ways, and I'm going to butcher it if I don't ask. Yeah, so maybe just give a quick rundown, kind of who you are, what you're doing, and how we got to this point, and then we'll kind of dive in the weeds a little bit.
Okay, sweet. My name is Kelsee Keitel. I am an outdoor-based mental health counselor and educator. So I primarily meet with clients on hiking trails to just do mental health counseling. And then I also do a lot of like education and programming along with that. So right now I'm finishing up a project where I developed a 5-week workshop series with a parks department about mental health in the outdoors. And we really focused in on mindfulness for that. So I just do like programming and things to just help people incorporate outdoors into their mental health care. And then on the side of that, I also have a podcast called Switchback Outdoor Community Podcast, where we just talk a lot about deep topics in the outdoors, but essentially the point of the show is to decrease barriers of access to outdoor recreation. And we just do that through interviews and storytelling and just like honest conversations. So that's what I'm doing.
That's awesome.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
When you first developed the mental health counseling piece of it, was that always going to incorporate outdoors, or like did one come first, or how did you kind of merge those, and how did that idea come to be?
That's a good question. So I used to be a high school counselor.
Okay.
I did that for 3 years, and kind of along the way I just started experimenting a little bit with students the way I was working with them. So I would notice like someone would come into my office and they're super fired up, maybe really angry about something that just happened. And I noticed that sitting at a desk across from one another, like that was really not that helpful for someone in that kind of emotional state. Right. And so I would kind of pick up on that. If someone came in super fired up or even just like really anxious, which I saw a lot of anxious kids, I would say, hey, do you want to go for a walk while we talk? And we would just walk either in the hallways or around the school building outside. And there's quite a bit of research with the bilateral movement. So like the act of walking, that can just be very helpful. So started doing that with students and noticed that it worked really well. As I started thinking about my own practice, which how I decided to switch into private practice is like another story, but
we'll get into all the things.
Yeah. So as I started thinking about my own practice, I also noticed, so I had that piece of knowing how walking was helping my clients, but then I also had just personal experience with the outdoors being very therapeutic in my own story. So I grew up like in the city, but we went camping like every weekend, and that was just kind of what we did as a family. And kind of lost that along the way. When I became a teenager, I thought it was really embarrassing that that's what our family did, and kind of rejected that. But then later in like my early 20s, I went through just like a lot of junk. Just some relational changes, and my dad actually had died, and the way that I dealt with those things was by going outdoors. So I'm a rock climber, and I also cycle and backpack and just do all the things outside. And so that was where I did like my work, where I really processed through things. So I kind of took like the like what I noticed with students and then what I knew to be true in my own life, and decided that that was the kind of practice that I wanted to have.
Very nice.
That's awesome.
It's really meaningful. Yeah, now that I think about it, the high school counselor where I went to school, I think their office like didn't have any windows in it.
Yeah,
so
mine
like,
didn't.
Yeah, you'd think that like when the school designates who has what office, they'd give it at least some natural light or something in there.
Oh yeah.
But, yeah. That's good. What kind of motivated you to go down the counselor route? Like, what is that something that was always in the back of your mind, or how'd that?
Yeah, I think deep down I always knew that I would work in the helping professions in some way. I was the first person in my family to go to college, and when I went to college, I had no idea really why I was going or what I wanted to study, which I have found through my work that is very common for first generation college students. A lot of them, they go because they've heard this promise that going to college is going to give them a life better than what they had. And in some cases that can be true, but I think a lot of first gen students go in kind of blindly. But so, yeah, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I took a lot of classes that were just things I was interested in. And finally, one year, an advisor was like, all these classes make up a major, right? And so that major was Human Development and Family Studies. We called it the mom major. And then I also did a minor in human sexuality. And so through like some internships, I did an internship at the Sexual Assault Crisis Services on campus down at IU. That was really enlightening. I also did some volunteer work at like a women's shelter for people who were fleeing domestic violence situations. So did a lot of like trauma work. Just kind of realized that was the type of work that I wanted to do. And my high school counselor did have a really positive impact on my life. So I thought I would try school counseling. And the program that I did for that at Butler, it was kind of like a buy one, get one program in a way, where if you do the school counseling program, you can kind of expedite the process to becoming a licensed mental health counselor. So that was why I chose to go to Butler, and I did that. So I thought that I would work in education for at least 5 years, maybe 10 max, before transitioning, and I made it 3, and then I transitioned. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Also, I can be like kind of long-winded, so feel free to interrupt me.
Well, this show is all about you, so
okay.
You just keep talking.
Okay.
So you only made it 3 years. What kind of issues did you see within the education system that you weren't a proponent of anymore, where you thought, hey, I can do this better on my own? So I guess, long question short, what do you think needs to be changed to keep good people in the education system that are there for the right reasons?
Yeah. A lot of people are sick of hearing this, but
oh yes, let's light some fires.
I've got a big butt over here. Just like, first and foremost, education needs to pay better, and people are sick of hearing that. But I mean, you get what you pay for. So one of the arguments with, like, when educators are asking for more money, one of the arguments that's always given is like, well, a lot of these, like my student has had some really bad teachers. They probably have, because at least in Indiana, I can't speak for all states, but in Indiana, like, it's so easy to become a teacher because we're desperate for teachers, because people are leaving the profession in masses. And so while I'm talking about teachers, I was a counselor. In Indiana, many counselors are on a teacher contract, even though to be a school counselor, you're required to have a master's degree. And you're not required to do that to be a teacher, but we're on the same contract in most school districts. But it's really even deeper than just paying them more. Like you guys know this as entrepreneurs, like the cost of something directly communicates its value. Mm-hmm. And so if you are telling an educator you are only worth this much money, what you're really telling them is, like, we only value your work this much. Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of educators are starting to recognize the value of their service and the work that they do, and that's why they are demanding more money, or they're leaving and taking their valuable skills and assets elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And so I really think that is a huge part of the problem, like the pay, but like the root of it really is like valuing educators, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah.
And where do you think that funding comes from? Because I think in the last few years, I think Indiana had some sort of education reform bill. Mm-hmm. But how do you think we get better funding for teachers? Because I agree with you. I think teachers, like, look, they're going to spend more time with your kids than the parents are. Yeah. Every day, from kindergarten through high school, college, like, they're going to really help mold your kids. Mm-hmm. So I think them in military should be paid a whole lot more. But how do we start to tap into that? Is that a budget issue? Is that just we need more money in general? How do you think that plays out?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't really know the answer. I think some of it has to do with what's kind of starting to happen is educators really like making it a problem for their school districts to figure out. And so a school district recognizes we are losing all of these amazing educators. This is our problem. We need to figure out how to better allocate the funding that we have. Because school districts, they have money, like they get to decide how they want to allocate those funds. And so you can, build a new baseball stadium, or you can figure that out later and increase your teacher pay, which is going to help you retain valuable educators, which then is going to make more people want to move into your school district because your school is so good and the education you're providing is so good. More people move into that community, which then increases the revenue that community has, which then increases the funding that can go into the district. So while I do believe that it is like a macro issue in that, like, education in this state needs better funding, I don't know where that comes from. I don't understand it, and I won't pretend like I do. But even from there, it goes into the districts, and then districts, like, they are the stewards of their staff, and they have to decide how to use that funding. And but I think for so long, it hasn't really been a problem. Like, people have been content with making X amount of money, and I can't tell you how many teachers I hear say, like, oh, you don't do it for the money. And, like, I'm going to tell you, like, yes, you do. That's the whole reason you have a job, is that you have to make money. And maybe you have a spouse or someone who makes more money, and so you're able to offset it and be like, yeah, like, we're fine.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, the whole reason teachers, like, the whole reason you have that job is because you have to have a job to make money. And so that is something that kind of frustrates me when I hear educators or people in other helping professions. Like, I see this in the counseling world as well, like, saying that you don't do this work for the money, you do it for the other rewards. And I get it, but I don't think it's true.
Yeah. Which, like, we all do stuff we love. Like, we're all doing businesses we love to do, but it's like we're doing it for money. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Like, I'm trying to make more and more money with everything I'm doing. Yeah. That's the game. But But yeah, like I still love it. I've done it for free a lot of years before. But yeah, to your point, you know, those same people are like, oh, well, then I don't make that much. It's like, but you don't do it for the money, right? Like, it's, let's have that conversation. What else did you see in during your time in education outside of the payment? Any issues with like, because I have a big gripe with curriculums. Like, I think we could make it more interesting for kids. I think people are disengaged because it's the same song and dance. It's this math and it's algebra 1, algebra 2, trig, it's calculus. I mean, I think there can be changes. I don't have all the answers. I'm no teacher, but I know the way I learned, like I have to be fascinated in it. I can't have a business teacher who only knows how to teach business who's never run a business. I need real application. So what else did you see? Were there curriculum issues? Do you think that is a problem, or is that me just kind of bitching and moaning about it?
I think there's some truth to that. Something I have noticed that students are craving, and I think you guys could probably identify with this as well. They're learning a lot of your traditional subjects, so science, math, English, which are all important. However,
I'm not saying we don't need those things.
But what students are really craving is like, how do I do my taxes? I just got my first job, and okay, maybe your parents are just going to file them for you. But when I leave this place, how am I going to do my taxes? How am I going to renew my car insurance? Like all of those adulting things.
How am I going to manage my money?
Yeah. Like
how do I live life?
Yes, like how am I going to function as an adult? And like the Pythagorean theorem or whatever, like it has its purpose.
I don't need no negative plus or minus b squared with the square root.
Fun fact, I did a presentation on that for my math class. That was my topic, the Pythagorean theorem.
See, that's what I'm talking about, man. Like
I spent hours doing a project on that. Yeah, but go ahead.
And I mean, and those things like, so I'll use math for an example. For me, I'm terrible at math. Like I took finite 6 times in college. I don't
even know what that is.
I still don't know what it is. So I took it 6 times. And so that's something that I've kind of got to collaborate with other people on when I need to figure out numbers stuff. But what it did teach me was perseverance, and like I wasn't going to graduate without finite, so I had to figure out how to at least pass it. And so you do learn some of those other like soft skills through those things. But yeah, I've noticed kids are really craving those real life application things. And kids are really craving, they want someone to tell them that there are other ways to live your life beyond just going to a 4-year university after here and getting a job that you might not really like, but you're told those are like the 4 main job options that you have. And kids are smart. Like they're starting to understand, like you can get like 2 semesters of a trade program and make $80,000 a year fresh out of or high school, essentially. And like you can do that. Or you can go get the equivalent of a master's degree and a half, go get a job in education, and make $44,000 a year, like I did.
Yeah.
So, kids are smart, and they're recognizing that there's more than one formula for how to be successful in the world, which is something that I feel very passionately about. That I want people to understand, like going to college is not the only way to have a successful life.
Right.
So I guess to your question about curriculum, I think just the more real world application stuff that we can weave into the curriculum, the better. Another thing I noticed that happens in education is there's quite a bit of like weaponizing self-care is kind of how I like to phrase it. So, which it's essentially just gaslighting, but Let's say you've got a caseload, as a school counselor, you've got a caseload of 400 kids. You're responsible for all of them. In order to do that job justice with a caseload that large, you are going to be working at home. Every week you're going to be working at home beyond your workday hours. Mm-hmm. You're not getting paid any extra time for that. But in order to do the job well, it's like a non-negotiable. And so then you come into work, and while you're trying to just make sure your 400 kids are on track to graduate, you also have students coming in unexpectedly having emotional needs, which is another part of the job. And so some of your to-do list completely gets thrown in the trash, which is a part of any job, but that happens. And then you're feeling like you get to December, like the end of the first semester, and you're incredibly burned out and you're frustrated because you're working so hard and you're not making enough money, and you probably have a second job. And you hear like a leadership person in your building saying, well, you need to do more self-care. Like you're not taking good enough care of yourself. That's why you're so burned out. And it's like, no, that's not my fault. Like, first off, I don't have time for self-care with this role. But second, like, even if I did, if I'm doing all the right self-care things, that doesn't fix like how screwed up the system is. So going back to like that caseload number, the American School Counseling Association, which is like our professional organization, it recommends a ratio of one counselor for every 250 students. But that is so rare. I cannot tell you how rare that is. And I mean, I was at a school where we had 10 counselors on our team. And that's still, like, my first year there, I had 400-something students on my caseload. So it was a big school. But, like, even small schools, it's very rare to have that appropriate ratio. And that's a funding issue.
And I think even 250 is a lot.
It is a lot.
For one person.
Yeah, that seems like a lot.
You know, let alone 400.
Yeah.
Now it's almost a disservice to the kids.
For sure.
And I'm sorry, I'm not sure if you mentioned, what age group were you counseling?
I was high school.
You were high school. Okay, so
9
like
through 12.
The peak of like all the issues, the anxiety, the...
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, relationship stuff.
Yes, yeah.
Man, okay.
And so, you know, you're trying your hardest to like remember all your kids' names and make them truly feel like you care about each and every one of them. And it's hard. I mean, it's good work, and I loved it, but I mean, the value of the service that I was providing was not matched with compensation. And that was one of the reasons I left, which is sad because I mean, you could ask other people. I'm speaking for myself, but I would say that I'm very good at that job. I know that I am, and I worked very hard, and to not have that matched, it got to a point where it was just like, this is unacceptable, and I have other things that I'm trying to do with my life, and I can't do it, like, making $44,000 a year when I have 6 figures of student debt. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, paying how much for college and then what you're able to make coming out of it. It's flip-flopped. Like, how can I pay you almost $200,000 and barely make 40?
Yeah.
Like, I know I have no skills, but something is not connected there.
Yeah.
So what did that look like when you finally said, hey, I had enough. I'm going to go into business for myself. What take us through that process of, okay, I'm going to start this business. Go.
Yeah. It has been, like, in tandem, it has been the most exciting and hardest thing I've ever done. Yeah, so I decided around December of this past school year that I was gonna gonna start my own business. And so I did finish out the whole school year, but I told them shortly after the new year that I was gonna leave. I wanted to give them plenty of time to find a good candidate to replace me and all of that. But like I said earlier, I knew eventually I would do this. So I kind of already had in my mind, like, okay, first thing, like, I need to be able to market what I'm doing. I need to be able to find clients. And because of how demanding I'll go back and I'll say this. Because of how demanding the school counseling role was, I knew that I could not do that and launch my practice at the same time. At least for me to be able to do well at those things, I just knew I couldn't do them both. So I made the decision to just quit my job and start my new one.
Love it.
And some people may say that was not wise, and I would say every 3 days I asked myself if that was the right thing to do.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, to me.
Yeah. But for me, I'm a big, you got to go all in with something. If you tiptoe around it, you're never going to jump in.
So true.
So that was the approach that I decided to take. So yeah, so I finished that job. I like to use the term that I finished my job rather than I quit my job. To me, that terminology matters. So I finished up the school year and just kind of started. So I had a website and just had laid out on there the services that I offer. I started joining some Facebook groups of other counseling practices so I could tell other practitioners in the area who may have wait lists, hey, if you need someone to refer to, I'm taking new clients, please pass them my way.
Cool.
I've used Facebook quite a bit, actually. There's a Facebook group called Hike Indiana, and I posted in there about my practice, just thinking, okay, people who like to recreate this way would probably be interested in my model of therapy. So just started using social media. I started hanging business cards up in windows. I have a flyer hanging in Yats on college.
Nice,
nice. Just started hanging things in.
Good product placement.
Yes. Just trying that way. And the Facebook posts really helped. It was getting me referrals. The posts in the hiking group went, it had a lot of engagement. And from there, a local news station found out about my practice, and so they ran a story on it, and I've gotten some leads from that, which has been good. So it's been slow, I would say, just a slow build. I was able to spend most of the summer really refining everything on the back end. So figuring out, what is my intake process going to be like? What is my pricing going to look like? Figuring out all those things on the back end. That's what I spent most of the summer doing. And then this fall is when I really started seeking clients. So I feel like by doing it that way, I was really ready then. When I did start getting clients, I had all the back end stuff figured out, which for me, gave me a good peace of mind.
Good.
Yeah, it's a lot to oh, what am I going to charge? How are people going to get a hold of me? Yeah. But that's cool you spent those few months, because I've told Tim I hate processes, writing processes and manuals, and for when I scale, oh, this is how you schedule an appointment, open calendars, get it, so good on you for getting all that done. And then how do you do, are you monthly with clients? Do you have contracts 3 months at a time? How does that setup kind of work?
Yeah, so my clients, we kind of choose the frequency that we meet based on their needs. Generally, people are coming for weekly therapy, so once a week. But I do have some clients who we meet just once a month, and I also we could do every other week. It really depends on the client's needs. One thing that's different in counseling compared to other industries is that you don't have a contract or anything like that. So like I could meet with someone 4 times and then they decide either they don't like working with me or they decide they don't need counseling anymore, or for whatever reason they decide to terminate our relationship. They can just do that then. It really is focused on like what the client needs and what's best for them. But yeah, that's how that works. So in terms of payment, people just pay at the time of service is how I do it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any big like pivots or like changes you've made with your business, like based on your interaction with clients? Yeah, like anything big you've had to change?
Yeah. Well, one thing that has really been like trial and error for me has been regarding my pricing.
Okay.
A little bit. So I think I was undercharging a bit at first, which I think is common for new entrepreneurs. You're just like desperate for people to.
Definitely. Same with me. Yep.
Yeah. And I was overcomplicating things a little bit too. So I'll give an example. In the counseling world, it's very common to offer a free consultation. I didn't want my consultations to be free. I really feel like my time is worth a certain amount, and especially in counseling, like no matter how hard you try to have boundaries, you're doing a little bit of counseling during a consultation. Like it happens. And so at first I had this like 3-tier system where it was like, if you do, so my consultations are 30 minutes long. So it's like, if you do a 30-minute phone consultation, it's free, but then virtual, it's $10, but then hiking, if we do a hiking one, it's $15. And it was just like all this stuff. And since then, I have completely changed the way I do consultations. So you could call me, we can talk for 15 minutes, and that's not going to cost you anything. Like if you have some questions, that's fine. But if you would like to do an in-person consultation, we would do that at the office. I'm not offering hiking consultations anymore. And it's $50, which is less than half of a typical session. So it's still like a good fee, but it's I think it's more appropriate for what's happening. Also, the client has a little more skin in the game, and so they're more likely to follow through, which I think is very important. But yeah, I decided to stop having the hiking consultations, mostly out of safety for me. So
if you've never met the person before, just meet.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah. So at first I was doing that because I wanted to know, I wanted to be able to assess this person's fitness level, and I wanted to be able to know, like, are you really, like, maybe, like, do you like the idea of hiking while we talk? But, like, is that going to be difficult for you?
I'm doing great. So the other day.
Yeah. It's like, that's not therapeutic.
I had this breakdown in.
Yeah, it's like that's not therapeutic.
Yeah.
So, but then I just was like,
I would have never thought about that until you said it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Therapy to pain.
So then I just decided, I'm going to meet with them in an office. I think we can be honest with each other. I can recognize if someone's going to, and I
pass
also
out on you and roll down some rocks. And
and I also have all levels of hikes that I do as well. So like that's just not necessary. So that is something that I've changed a little bit. I'm trying to think of if there's anything else that I've adjusted. That was a big one, and my pricing in general. I said, I adjusted that because what I started to realize was that the type of therapy that I'm offering, it is an entirely different service than meeting with someone in an office. I do offer in office, and I also offer virtual therapy, but for the outdoor sessions, that is like a very unique service, and so it deserves its own pricing. And for a while, I was really hesitant to do that because I was scared, like most people are, that no one would want to buy it. And this kind of goes along like with what we were talking about with education. You have to know like the value of what you're offering. and that would be like my number one piece of advice for anyone who is, even if you're just doing like an Etsy shop and you're selling, portraits or whatever, like before you really get started, you need to have a solid understanding of your value and your products or services value. And because if you don't know it, no one else is going to know it, and they're going to decide what the value is. And then that'll lead you to the people who, one, they do see that value, and two, like they are able to afford that value. It's going to lead you to your ideal clients, really. So that's been a challenge for me, and that what I thought was my ideal client actually wasn't my ideal client at first. And so I've had to refine that and adjust, which then that also adjusts how you're marketing, where you're marketing, the language you're using. I mean, if your ideal client changes, everything changes, essentially, in my mind at least. And so, that's been a learning curve along the way, and just really trusting that my ideal client exists, and that they will see the value and that they'll buy in.
Yeah.
And then what do you do during like winter months for hiking? Is it like, hey, suck it up, bundle up, we're going? Or is that more in office stuff when it's cold season?
Yeah, so it can be a combination. A lot of it depends on the client. So if I've got someone who is a seasoned outdoors person, they love being out in all seasons, they would probably be like, yeah, let's bundle up, and just 2 inches of snow out, let's do it,
The tough ones out there.
Yep. Yeah. We have to be selective on the terrain that we go on then, though, making sure it's not icy and all that. But so I may have people who are cool with going out in all weather. If the weather is undesirable for them, or let's say it's like super icy and not safe, they've got some options. We can reschedule and take our chances on the next week, which in Indiana, who knows?
Right. 80 in December,
you never know.
Snow in July.
So we can reschedule. We can also switch to a virtual session that day, so they could stay home. I'll stay home, and we'll do it that way. Or we can meet in the office. And so, like I mentioned earlier, if they typically are paying for the outdoor price, if we meet in the office or if we meet virtually, I'm going to honor that. Like, I'm going to let them pay that cost instead, because it is a different service. That's how we navigate it. Some people are cool with it, and some people are like, no, I don't want to walk in the rain.
Yeah, right.
What's your like Rolodex of hiking spots look like? Like, how long's your list? Like, you kind of mentioned it, how you determine it based on their fitness level or like the difficulty, but how big is your list, and what are some of the factors that go into deciding which one you pick?
Tim's looking for new spots.
I am. I like hiking for sure.
I actually really have been wanting to create like a Hidden Gems Indianapolis like hiking guide or something. So, I can share some with you. That's one thing that's adjusted too. Actually, when I first started, I kind of had this idea that I have this like map of like the greater Indianapolis area, basically. And I would find out where the person was coming from, where I'm coming from, and I would like triangulate that and find something that would fit within there. And I just had way too many options. And so then a lot of my time was then spent like driving across town and so I actually have narrowed my offerings down a bit. But some of the spots that I choose to go to, there's a lot of entrances to Eagle Creek Park. Beyond just the entrances where you pay to get in, there's quite a few free entrances to the park. So I do try to choose free entrances, free places for people because they're already paying like me. So a couple of spots, Scott Starling Nature Sanctuary, that is on the northwest side of Eagle Creek. It's a free entrance. It's beautiful. I actually just did like a group hike there last weekend. And then on the southwest side of Eagle Creek, Galleon's bear. It's like that big copper, like metal bear statue. I don't know if you've ever seen it,
no,
but
I don't think so.
yeah, it's so that's another entrance that you can get into. Holiday Park is a great option. Fort Harrison, if people have a park pass, or if they're okay with paying like the fee to get in there, is another great option. But also just common places like the Monon or the Fall Creek Greenway. I really want to meet people like where they are, so that they can start to associate just outdoor spaces that they encounter like in their everyday life as like therapeutic places. So kind of the approach that I take with counseling is I don't want my clients to need me. And so like I'm not going to string someone along for years and years and years. If I'm doing my job right, they are gaining the skills to be able to navigate life on their own without me. And so with the parks in mind, I want them to start to recognize a walk around their neighborhood can be just as therapeutic as like going on a trail in the woods with me. And just learning how to like change their perspective on things in that way. So so like a greenway like the Monon is perfect for someone who maybe they're not comfortable hiking on like a rugged trail, but they still want to get some of that movement in. They want to talk in the fresh air. Like some people, they're just not comfortable sitting on a couch staring at you, like talking about what's going on, and that's okay. So yeah, I've got like a variety of like terrains, and that's the biggest thing I keep in mind is like length of hike, difficulty of like the grade or the technicality of the trail, and then the actual like what type of surface it is, and try to figure out where they're coming from and where I'm coming from and what's a good middle ground. So yeah, I've got quite a list.
I'll say I never knew half these places existed.
Yeah, the one that you talk about northwest of Eagle Creek
Scott
Park.
Starling.
Yeah, I want to check that one out.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, some others, the Eco Lab at Marian University. Parking there can be kind of iffy. Like there's visitor parking, but it's a college campus, so sometimes visitor parking gets full. But there's some really sweet little trails down in there. If someone's coming from Southwest Way, which is like a mountain bike and hiking park, I don't use that one a lot because it is like a really good mountain biking destination, and so you don't want to have to be like looking over our shoulders the whole time while we're talking, looking out for riders and stuff. It helps that I do a lot of hiking myself, and I also mountain bike, so I understand like what areas are going to be good and what areas are going to be distracting. But yeah, there's so many like hidden gem spots in Indy.
Oh yeah,
that's awesome. So you think you'll still like, I know with your clients and stuff, you're more picky and choosy about where you're going. Are you still going to try to build some almost like travel hiking guide? Like, I don't know. I think that would be cool because I don't know any good spots outside of like Brown County, right? And I know, Tim, you're applying to write for, is it Golf Digest? So he's applying to write for Golf Digest, go around the country and just play different golf courses. So I didn't know if that'd be something you would do like for greater Indianapolis area hiking trails, like start your own, almost like pizza review Barstool style for hiking. Like, hey, this one has some shitty roots, some mean things really sticking out of the ground, so be careful on this one. 7.7.
Oh my gosh, I'm just like laughing over here because when I think of Barstool Sports, the only thing I can think of is the Call Her Daddy show, and so I'm imagining like that style of a show talking about hiking trails. No, yeah.
Whole new segment of your podcast. We're just recreating everything here.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And we have a sexy trail up here on the north side.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh, I'm going to be thinking about that all day now.
Great, I've ruined her day. It's not even 11 o'clock.
No, yeah, I don't know what'll come of it. As of now, I'm thinking about just creating like my top 10, hiking spaces in central Indiana. Maybe making it like a top 10 free like hiking spaces in Indiana that you might not know about, and just offering that as a resource. Something that I think is really important is like serving your audience before you're selling to them. And I don't know that everyone would totally agree with it, but what I mean by that is like, if you're only selling things to people, like you're only going to reach the people who have already decided to buy from you. But if you were serving people through like, hey, here's my free download of something that actually is valuable that you like could charge for, but you're offering it for free, like you're gonna reach more people that way, and they're gonna start to like trust you and like you, and then they may like convert to like a purchasing client at some point. So like with that guide in mind, like that's probably something that I would at least at first just offer is like, hey, here's something I want to serve you with. Get outside. My like kind of mantra is like, get out of your head and get outside. Like, so giving someone a free way to do that is kind of like,
yeah,
for sure.
It's a really good resource.
Yeah, and Tim and I talk quite a bit of giving value first, and then the guy who runs the nutrition company that I got certified in for coaching, he's all about like give such good value and so much of it that people have no choice but to buy from you eventually. Like if you just keep giving good value out, then I'm like, oh wow, this like they know what they're doing, like they're gonna take care of me. Yeah, I want to buy what they can offer.
Yeah.
So I think that's a fantastic idea of, hey, here's a little free guide here, a little free guide there, and maybe it takes you like a day or two to work it up. Right. Pretty up a little bit, but then like, hey, this is free. I think like I would look at it again. I don't know where to hike.
Yeah.
Outside of Brown County, I don't know where to go.
And I think with those things, like I guess speaking to other entrepreneurs now, like that guide for me would be so easy to make because like I know all of that already.
Right.
It's just putting it on paper. And so if you're trying to figure out like what can I offer my people, just think about what you know already, and use that. Like another way I'm doing that is once a month I offer a guided mindfulness hike. It's open to anyone. Right now I have it as like a recommended $5 donation. At some point I will probably charge a little bit more, like actually charge for it. But it's just a way for me to like build relationships with people in the community. I'm able to show people good hidden like places to hike. I can kind of teach them how to interact with the trail a little bit better. And then they have a skill that they can go and they can do on their own. And then if they really liked meeting me, and we like vibed well, then they might consider being a client if they ever needed counseling or something.
Sure. That's awesome. And it's like there's so many good things of being outside, like outside of just movement. I mean, the research on just being able to move, get up off the ground is astounding. But then you add sunlight, you get vitamin D, like so your overall health, you're helping them with mental health and just clearing their headspace. There's so many other intangibles outside of just hiking that I think is really great about your practice.
Thank you. Yeah, even just like fresh air alone is so helpful. And I think people are starting to recognize that more through the pandemic, like when people were just cooped up at home and didn't really have anything else to do. Like that's the reason why the bike industry is like on fire. Like, you can't buy a bike anywhere or bike parts, or if you like go on Craigslist or something. I still use Craigslist. But you like go online and you try to buy like a used like bike part that normally you could get for like $70 and it's marked up to like $200 because people are desperate for bikes. Like people are getting outdoors and they're recognizing the value in it. So it's funny because a lot of people ask me like, oh, did you come up with your outdoor counseling like because of the pandemic? And I was just like, no, but it does work really well.
Yeah, right. Good timing.
Yeah.
Anything about, since you started your own practice, anything about entrepreneurship that maybe you didn't expect was going to happen? Whether it was a good happening, a bad happening, like, oh, I didn't know I'd have to think about this.
Yeah. Ironically enough, I would say it can be very lonely, but I also have made like some of the best friends through it. Mm-hmm. So on the lonely side of it, like, there's kind of this joke that like you leave your 9 to 5 so you can work whenever you want, and then you work like 24/7. Right. Yep. At least, especially during like the building season, that is a reality. Like I'm working my part-time job that supplements my income while I'm building this and troubleshooting and just trying to like learn all that I can and grow and build. And so that in itself can be lonely because I went from working on a team to working alone. Sometimes people who work a more of a traditional 9 to 5 job also just don't understand like what you're going through. Right. People whose paychecks are just magically appearing in their bank account versus you like try to do all you can to get like half a paycheck, and then you take another half of it and you have to put it, you reinvest it, or you save it for taxes, or all of that. Like you take a lot for granted in that 9 to 5, like your paycheck's just delivered to you kind of lifestyle. Not that that's bad, but like it's so different. And so sometimes I think some of my peers don't quite understand like the pressure and the stress that I've chosen, but like that I'm living in. So that can be lonely a little bit. I will say I'm fortunate that my partner is also an entrepreneur and kind of in the same stage as me. Okay. So everything is on fire always, but
that's awesome. Yeah.
But he understands. And so, yeah, that's been really fun because like one week I'm like, this is terrible. I'm going to go get a job somewhere right now. And then he's like, oh, but I just got a new lead. Like, it's fine. It's all going to work out. Keep going. And then
positive energy.
Yeah.
Feed off each other.
Then the other week it's totally flip-flopped, or he's like, why did I do this? And I'm like, it's going to work out. But so, yeah, that. But then, yeah, I really have, though, made some really sweet connections with other entrepreneurs who are kind of in my similar industry, like other therapists that I've connected with, one of my really good friends, her name's Sarah Gardner. She's a sound bathing instructor. So she.
What is that? Sorry, I have no idea what that means.
So once I describe it to you, you'll be like, oh. So it's a meditation practice that you would go to kind of like a yoga class, but she has these beautiful fancy bowls with like a special spoon that they like circle around the edge of the bowl, and it makes this beautiful sound, and there's like wind chimes and different things. And so it's really like using sound to connect with your body. You would love it. I actually really wanted to connect you guys with Sarah. So
I think that'd be cool. Yeah, because there's a lot of science between sound and like water, and our bodies are mostly water. So I'm very fascinated.
Yeah, Sarah is incredible, and I met her through my like part-time job. So I teach intro to bouldering at a rock climbing gym.
Oh, cool. Which gym you at?
North Mass Boulder.
Oh, nice.
We're trying to have them on the show.
Yeah.
We reached out to them like a week and a half ago.
Oh, sweet.
Come on, guys.
Come on. So, they, so Sarah, she teaches like all over Indy, but she does teach a class at North Mass. So I met her there, and we've just become like really good friends. And she's been an awesome person for like, I think for both of us to have each other to like bounce ideas off of. Because even though her work is different than mine, it's totally in the same realm of like alternative mental health care, basically. So yeah, while it can be incredibly lonely and you're just like always doubting and wondering like, was that like, am I making the right progress, or you're just constantly in your head. The people who are also in it, who I've connected with, have just become like the dearest friends. And I feel like they get me and I get them, and the gift of like patience that they're able to give me that some of my other friends, like, they try, but it's just not the same, it's just nice to be understood. So yeah, I think that was one of the surprising things. It's just like, this is slow. It's a grind, but I have hope that like it's going to be worth it. And I'm like so excited for that day when I can look back and be like, wow, that like, so someone told me that the first year of starting a business can feel like chewing glass. And I like 100% agree with that. And that's what that's what Alec and I will say to each other. I'll be like, yeah, this is a glass eating week.
Yeah. Someone else said that, and they're like, yeah, it's like chewing glass blindfolded.
Oh.
Like, because you don't know at first, and it's like, oh shit, man, this hurts.
Yeah.
But yeah, entrepreneurship is true test of wills. Like, and I'm sure you both had this, but I have people in my life where they'll tell me, hey, you need to slow down. And I say, you don't understand. Yes, I decided to do this. I can go get a job anytime I want. I'm not going to do that. That's just not for me. But if I slow down, I don't make money.
Yeah.
If I don't do anything, nothing is getting done. Because no one else is doing it for me. I don't have, some junior analyst or someone else to like, hey, can you take care of this? Like, no, I do everything. Yeah. As both of you do. You do everything. So if I slow down, that's got to be a very picky and choosy time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my roommate is like, man, you are always doing something. I was like, dude, this is what it is. Like, he's like, you're always working. I was like, welcome to the club, dude. Yeah. And it's not for everybody either. It's like, he likes his 9 to 5. Sure. I don't like that. He wouldn't do what we're doing. Yeah. But yeah, it's a real test of wills, because there have been some days when I'm like, man, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, let me just wake up. I'll clock in. I'll clock out. I'll get paid, and that's it. Yeah. It's like, that's just. I'm like, no, reset. Go to the gym, and then I'll think, well, that's a terrible idea. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was agreeing.
Another thing though that has been really surprising and kind of like one of the most empowering things I've learned through this journey though is that if you like ask for what you want, like truly, if you ask for what you want, like you will get what you want. Like, and that was something that, so you're meeting me now. I'm like fairly soft-spoken. For most of my.
I've been telling you to try to keep it down a little bit. Like, please calm yourself.
and you wouldn't believe it, but like 2 years ago, I was like turn the volume knob down like 100 notches, like just very like timid, shy, quiet. I would never tell you what I want. I would never ask you what I want. And through this entrepreneurial journey, I've learned that you kind of like have to do that. And so what I mean by that is like, well, even this show, for example, like I just emailed you and was just like, hey, I would kind of like to be on your show. Yeah. Like,
you said you're
those are our favorite types of guests.
The family member inviting themselves over or something. However you said it. Yeah.
And I was saying either they will like this or they'll hate it, but like when you ask for what you want, like you will, in some way or another, you will get what you want. And so like with the Facebook pages, for example, like I just posted on the groups and was like, hey, someone on this page might be interested in the service that I offer. From there, like, yeah, I got a couple clients, but then from there, someone on that group messaged me and was like, hey, can I share about your practice on this other group that I have? Because I think this group would benefit from it. And I'm like, yes, please share it everywhere you can. So then they shared there. And then from that one, I got a phone call from another therapist who was like, hey, I am interested in referring a client to you. And then through that conversation, this person is connecting me with some other opportunities that aren't directly counseling, but other things in my wheelhouse that would really help me out in all of this work. And it all just goes back to being like, I want clients and I want these people to know about my services, so I'm just gonna put it out there. You just like have to tell people what you want, because just like in relationships, like your partner can't read your mind, your potential clients can't read your mind, your potential, like your boss can't read your mind, your employers can't read your mind. Like, tell people what you want, and like that's how you get what you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. Or like going off that, kind of something similar is like not only asking people for what you want, but at least like speaking it into existence so that you yourself hear it, like the positive daily affirmations type of thing. Yeah, just put it out there instead of keeping it inside, and I feel like it makes you accountable to go do it.
Totally.
As well. Yeah. So, or follow through with it.
So talk to us a little bit about your podcast. How far into it are you? How many episodes? How's it going? How are you liking it?
I love it. I will say I have no background in like tech, audio, nothing like that.
Neither do we.
Neither did we. We're the farthest thing from that.
It's like there's so much to learn. And that's one thing that I love about it though. So my show, Switchback Outdoor Community Podcast, the idea from it really was just like, I've always wanted to have a podcast. I thought it would be a fun way to connect with people. And I started noticing just in the outdoor world. So I spend a lot of time outdoors, not just in my work, but just personally recreating. And I noticed that it can be kind of exclusive. So, which is funny because a lot of people refer to the outdoors as like the great equalizer, like, oh, it's just outside, go outside. But that looks different for everyone from just like a skills and knowledge standpoint. So like you don't know where the best trails are, or once you get there, you might not know how to read the trail map, or you don't know what kind of gear would really be most beneficial. So there's like a gap of knowledge there for some people. And then there can also be a gap of access just due to representation in the outdoors. You go to a national park, it's mostly going to be white people, like who have RVs or something. So there's that. Or even like people with disabilities, like they can't necessarily just on a whim go outside. Like they have to prepare. They have to know where they can go that is going to be truly accessible to them. So I was just thinking about those things and thinking just in my personal life, like how can I be a better steward of my knowledge and my access to outdoor places. And so the podcast was kind of my idea for that. So I invite guests on the show, and I either invite guests who have like an interesting story about something they've done in the outdoors, or someone who has like an expertise on something. And I'm being mindful with the guests who I invite on that I want to have good representation of the outdoors. So trying to invite like diverse guests who also have better perspectives on things. So for example, like with leave no trace principles. So leave no trace is the idea that you want to leave the outdoor spaces better than you found them. So not leaving your trash, or like if you have to poop in the woods, like digging the right kind of hole, that kind of stuff. A person of color might have a different perspective on leave no trace principles than a white person, because for a long time the outdoors was kind of like exclusive to people of color, and still can be in many ways. But so like leave no trace principles could have been used by people as a way to like get the Black people camping down the road from them kicked out of the campground or something like that.
Okay.
So just for like an example. So I'm trying to have people with just like all kinds of perspectives come on and talk about things related to the outdoors. So it launched on November 1st. So right now, at the time of us recording this, there is a trailer and 2 episodes out. Later this week, another episode will come out. But like backlogged, I've got 14 recorded.
Oh, nice.
So I'm trying to take like a batch approach to